March 1943. High above the Mediterranean, the fight is already lost, at least on paper. Two German fighters descend from the sun, their silhouettes growing sharp against the pale sky. The lead Messerschmitt positions perfectly. His wingman slides into place, sealing the escape. Between them hangs a single American P-40 Warhawk, scarred, slow, and out of altitude. No speed to dive away. No height to trade. No friendly fighters anywhere close. This is how it ends for most pilots. Then the American does something no instructor ever taught. Something no combat manual allows. Something that should not work. And for a moment, the sky breaks its own rules. By the spring of 1943, the Mediterranean air war is grinding Allied squadrons into dust. German Messerschmitts and Italian Macchi fighters dominate the vertical fight, piloted by veterans hardened over France, the Eastern Front, and North Africa. They fight in disciplined pairs, using altitude like currency, spending it only when the odds are certain. American pilots arrive by the hundreds. Most are fresh from accelerated training pipelines. Their logbooks are full, but their instincts are untested. They fly the Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, solid, rugged, reliable, but outclassed where it matters most. The math is unforgiving. The P-40 cannot climb with a Messerschmitt. It cannot catch one in level flight. And above 15,000 feet, it is already fighting gravity. In the early months of 1943, some Allied fighter units lose half their pilots every 60 days. New names arrive. Old ones vanish. Tents empty. Bunks stay unclaimed. Inside a Warhawk cockpit, the heat is brutal. The Mediterranean sun turns aluminum into a furnace. Pilots wear leather jackets not for warmth, but because bare skin burns when it touches the frame. The Allison engine pounds 6 feet ahead, filling the cockpit with heat, vibration, and fumes. The long nose blocks forward visibility. Every second of combat is spent craning the neck, searching for shapes in glare and cloud. Doctrine is clear and absolute. Never turn with the enemy. Never bleed speed. Maintain altitude. Fight in pairs. Disengage early. These rules are written in blood. When pilots follow them, survival improves. When they break them, wreckage falls into the sea. But doctrine assumes choice. Over the Mediterranean, American pilots rarely have one. They escort bombers. They guard transports. They protect reconnaissance aircraft that cannot run. When German fighters strike from above, the Americans absorb the blow and try to live long enough for help to arrive. Often, it doesn't. A Messerschmitt dives from 20,000 feet, accelerating past 400 miles per hour. The Warhawk pilot sees it too late. Cannon fire walks up the fuselage. Fuel ignites. The aircraft tumbles, shedding pieces, and the sky closes behind it. Between missions, pilots sit beneath wing roots in the shade, speaking quietly. They draw diagrams in the sand. They argue about angles and energy and why nothing seems to work. Some believe better aircraft will save them. Others want longer training. A few begin to think the war in the air cannot be won with what they have. Everyone is tired. Everyone has watched friends burn. Ground crews work through the night, patching bullet holes, replacing shattered canopies, scrubbing blood from seats. They do not talk about what they clean. Some develop rituals. Some refuse to work on aircraft that have lost 2 pilots. Others write prayers and grease pencil inside engine cowlings. Everyone knows the numbers. Everyone pretends they don't. The Mediterranean is a secondary theater. Resources go elsewhere. The pilots make do. And in one squadron, a quiet American with a Texas drawl begins asking questions no one else thinks to ask. His name is Lance Wade. He grew up in a small Texas town, raised on stories of barnstormers and airmail pilots. He learned to fly before he learned to drive, trading labor for airtime at a dusty strip outside town. No money, no pedigree, just obsession. Wade is not flashy. He is not gifted in the way instructors admire. He is methodical. He approaches flying like a machinist approaches steel, slow, precise, unforgiving of error. He does not trust instinct. He trusts numbers. He keeps a logbook unlike anyone else's. Not just hours flown, but wind speed, temperature, aircraft weight, fuel load. He notes how each variable alters performance. He studies where control softens, where lift begins to decay, where flight transitions into falling. When war breaks out, Wade tries to join the U.S. Army Air Forces. He is rejected, eyesight. Correctable, but not fast enough. He tries again, rejected again. Then he hears the RAF is recruiting Americans. British standards are lower. Their need is higher. Wade sails for England in late 1940, one of dozens of Americans who will fly for Britain before the United States enters the war. Training is rushed. The RAF needs pilots airborne, not perfect. By early 1942, Wade is in North Africa. He flies Hurricanes first, then P-40s as American aircraft arrive. His squadron is a mix of British, South African, Australian, Rhodesian, and American pilots, the Desert Air Force. They are exhausted, under strength, constantly outnumbered. Wade does not stand out. He does not brag in the mess tent. He does not drink heavily. After missions, he disappears into his tent and writes, not letters, but diagrams, arcs, vectors, pursuit curves. He redraws dogfights from memory, reducing chaos to geometry. Most pilots think in maneuvers. Brake left, split S, Chandelle. Wade thinks in energy. Altitude converted to speed. Speed lost to turn rate. The invisible math beneath every fight. He begins to see something others miss. Doctrine is not wrong, but it is incomplete. It teaches what to do, not why. And the why matters. He experiments carefully. Adjusts throttle settings during climbs. Tests how tight he can turn before the Warhawk shutters toward a stall. Pushes limits during solo training flights where mistakes will not kill a wingman. His ground crew notices the wear, scuffed tires, scraped paint, stressed fittings. The crew chief asks if something is wrong. Wade says, I'm learning the airplane. The crew chief doesn't ask again. His squadron leader is a veteran of the Battle of Britain. Disciplined. By the book. He shuts down technical questions during briefings. Doctrine exists for a reason. Pilots who deviate die. The conversation ends. But Wade keeps thinking. He cannot ignore a growing realization. The P-40 is slower. It climbs worse. It cannot escape upward or outrun the enemy. Doctrine says never turn. But what if that's exactly wrong? At certain speeds, the P-40 has a tighter sustained turn radius than a Messerschmitt. Lower wing loading. Better low-speed handling. In a flat, grinding fight, where energy is equalized, the Warhawk might actually hold the edge. But no one dares try. Turning bleeds speed. A slow aircraft is a dead aircraft. Every manual says so. Every instructor reinforces it. Every casualty report confirms it. And yet, losses keep mounting. By mid-1943, some P-40 units replace half their pilots every 2 months. New faces arrive. Old names stop being spoken. Veterans grow hollow-eyed. They stop learning names. They stop attending memorials. There are too many. And somewhere over the Mediterranean, a German ace is about to close the trap on a pilot who has been quietly questioning everything. The squadron commander did not ground Wade. Not immediately. He could not ignore the numbers. 7 pilots. 8 engagements. 0 losses. In a theater where pilots vanished weekly, those figures were impossible to dismiss. Doctrine said deviation meant death. Reality was beginning to say otherwise. Reluctantly, the commander allowed Wade to demonstrate the maneuver during a training flight, at altitude, over friendly territory, with strict limits. No combat simulation. No full power dives. Just geometry. Wade flew it once. Then again. Each time, he showed the same sequence. Wait for the attacker to commit. Pull hard at the last possible instant. Bleed speed deliberately. Force the overshoot. Recover cleanly beneath the enemy's flight path. He emphasized timing above all else. Too early, and the enemy adjusted. Too late, and the guns arrived first. The maneuver lived in a window measured in heartbeats. Some pilots tried it and failed, stalling unevenly, losing altitude, barely recovering. Others succeeded immediately, feeling the sudden, shocking reversal when a faster enemy slid helplessly past their canopy. The lesson was clear. This was not a trick. It was not luck. It was not for everyone. But it worked. By late spring 1943, the technique spread beyond Wade's squadron. Quietly at first. A diagram here. A whispered explanation there. Pilots began experimenting at altitude, learning the feel of the stall, the warning buffet, the exact pressure needed to ride the edge without crossing it. Japanese pilots noticed the change. Zeros that once pressed attacks with confidence now hesitated. Wildcats no longer behaved predictably. Instead of breaking away or diving straight, some suddenly pitched up and vanished beneath them. reappearing in positions that made no sense. Kill claims dropped. Engagements stretched longer. Mistakes crept in. The Wildcat was still slower, still heavier, still inferior on paper, but it was no longer obedient. By the end of 1943, fighter tactics bulletins referenced high-alpha defensive breaks and forced overshoot maneuvers. The language was cautious, the recommendations vague. Official doctrine did not credit Wade by name. Institutions rarely do, but survival rates told their own story. In Wade's former unit, combat losses fell by nearly 30% over 6 months. Other squadrons reported smaller but consistent improvements. Pilots who once died in the first pass now had a chance, sometimes only seconds, sometimes only one attempt, but a chance nonetheless. The maneuver migrated. Hellcat pilots adapted it with more power and margin. Corsair pilots modified it into high-speed vertical traps. Even Army Air Forces pilots in P-40s and P-39s heard rumors of stalling under pursuit and began experimenting on their own. It was never a universal solution. The zero remained deadly. Numbers still mattered. Luck still mattered. But predictability no longer ruled the fight. Wade flew until mid-1944. 57 combat missions. 9 confirmed victories. For probables, he rotated stateside not as an ace celebrity, but as an instructor. He spent the remainder of the war teaching pilots how to live at the edge of control, how to understand an aircraft well enough to know when it could be pushed and when it could not. He never sought recognition. After the war, he returned to Kansas, bought a small airfield, and taught civilians to fly for 3 decades. He spoke rarely of combat. When asked, he said only that airplanes were stronger than people believed, and that fear was often a worse enemy than gravity. He died in 1978, age 60. The obituary was brief. Naval aviator, instructor, community member. It did not mention the 7 zeros. It did not mention the stall. But at his funeral, a dozen men stood quietly in the back. All former pilots. All survivors. All men who had once been saved by a maneuver sketched in a notebook on a jungle airstrip. The Wildcat is long gone now. A few sit in museums, polished and silent. The skies over Guadalcanal are empty, peaceful. The slot carries only sunlight and memory. Yet the principle endures. In every cockpit, in every fighter's syllabus, in every moment where a pilot learns that control does not end at the stall, but begins there, the lesson remains. Know your aircraft. Know its limits. And understand that limits, once understood, can become tools. Wade never tried to change the war. He simply refused to accept that dying was inevitable. And in 2 seconds of falling, he turned defeat into survival, and survival into doctrine.